everyone. Thank you for coming today to this interview with Custom Broadway and Sondheim Losing My Mind. I'm Maggie Salko, along with my co-host Doug Gallo, and we're going to be talking to the team behind Losing My Mind. Thank you guys so much for attending today, and also thank you for the album that has been getting us through quarantine and that we are going to be listening to all summer. So I'm going to start off with some questions for Joshua, Scott, and Will. And the first one is going to be right off the bat, what inspired this album?
So Joshua and hi, I'm Scott Wasserman. I am one of the creators of the album. I did the orchestrations and arrangements along with Joshua, and we produced the album together. Joshua came to me with this idea, and I'll let him describe how the idea came to him and then piggyback off of that to get to where it ended up today.
Well, I was in the basement at work. It was a sad day. Actually, like, the story kind of goes back. I was having drinks with Eiley Venho, who's one of the singers on the album and sings The Miller's Son. And we were talking about just kind of the desire to be doing something and creating something to do in the summer. And I was at work a few days later and I was like, I really just want to do like a disco fun evening, but I'd also love to do a full evening of Sondheim. And then my brain kind of just processed that into, okay, so let's just do a disco Sondheim evening, because that's what 1 + 1 equals. Drag racing on the street. And then I sent Scott a text and it was a yes within 5 minutes and we went going.
Yeah, Joshua and I had done a lot of other projects together that did mashups of genres that aren't necessarily thought of as congruous, right? And we've done a lot of cabaret shows together using those kinds of mashups and arrangements. And this started out as an idea for live performance that evolved into this album structure from there. So I was immediately excited to get working on like how we could make Sondheim work in the context of disco and also do different disco styles. You know, not every song is like 1974 disco, you know, so we go into the 80s with some of them, we go a little further back with some of them too.
Yeah, so we sat down, we had coffee, and I don't know if you remember this, Scott, but as I was describing what was in my head to you, you were like, oh, so it's kind of just like a, I don't know, like a Sondheim Disco Fever Dream.
Was I the first one that said that?
I think, yeah, the words, it was like, okay, how do we describe what this is? And it was like, yeah, it's like a Sondheim Disco Fever Dream. And then I think like a few seconds later, it was like, well, you know, like we could just go the obvious route and call it Losing My Mind, because we're just like crazy fools for thinking we should do this. And again, it was a very quick sandwich. And
All right, thank you so much. So my next question is, what was then, once you had this inspiration in mind, what was the process of creating the album like?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we sat down, as I was saying, for coffee, and we started with, you know, what were the songs that we really wanted to hear set in this disco world. And I believe the first one that came out was The Miller's Son, specifically talking in reference to the sweeping orchestral feel of MacArthur Park and the like spectacle of that in the arrangement. And then from there, it started getting into mashups and possible combinations of things flowing into a medley that we were intrigued by. We definitely were playing around with this idea that it would feel like a record when we were crafting this, of how do we have an opening and what would it be like if we combined various openings and overtures, and how would that add to the landscape of what this would turn into, while kind of navigating all these different disco territories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a combination of looking at Sondheim's work and putting together things like overtures and openings of shows, or putting together lyrics and themes that made sense, working together from different shows that had similar structures to them. And then also I think the idea of the instrumentation of the album really affected how the arrangements turned out. So thinking about using a full string section in combination with a like disco rhythm section and how that would work with Sondheim's music really informed the structure of the piece as a whole. So we put all that together and got to work and made vocal arrangements, and the rest is history.
So in true Sondheim fashion, you were putting it all together.
Yeah.
All right, so Doug has our next question.
Cool. Hey guys, it's Doug. So my question for you guys is, why'd you choose the cast that you did?
It's a great question. The cast is made up of a lot of good friends of ours that we've worked with on various projects, going all the way back to like when we first arrived in New York. I know for both Joshua and I, we met a lot of these people way back when. And people that we thought had an equal handling of the musical theater side of this project and the more pop side of this project too. Singers that can really work with the tricky notation of Sondheim's music, but also bring their own individual style and flair and elevate it to sounding like a true disco record. So I think that was what we had in mind in choosing each person.
We also wanted it to be representative of disco music as a genre, and having a cast that had more than just, like Scott and I are two white men, and we wanted our cast to be representative of disco music. So that is black queer artists, black women, people of color, as disco truly comes from the Black and Latinx community. And so it was really important as we brought this into an album that was on the front of our mind from the go.
Well, you guys certainly did an amazing job choosing the cast. The singers, the performances in the album are absolutely outstanding. You mentioned that you chose the tracks by like theme, by the instrumentals, but was there a specific story that you might have had in mind while creating the album?
I mean, going off of the idea of a fever dream, I think we were playing with different, at least in my mind at different times coming to Scott with different ideas, was if this was happening in your dream and you were imagining all these shows swirling together, what might be things that wouldn't exist necessarily on a stage in the show, but the themes would kind of stick together. Infamously, I remember going to Scott with like, okay, well, what if there's like a food, all these food songs are mashed together, which did not happen for good or worse, I don't know. But that was kind of what was leading a lot of the thought process as well of what would it look like put in a Vitamix and now you have a blender Sondheim that you're dreaming at night, and it doesn't always make sense, but then if you look at it from afar you can interpret it in the study of dream.
So it must have taken you a long time to pick all these songs, develop the Fever Dream, and then mix it. How long did you all work on this album for?
The whole process was about 2 years, from initial idea to putting the recording out. So I'd say it took a few months to do the initial like pass at arranging all the songs and getting it into a format that we were happy with, and then the process of securing the rights and permissions to work on all these songs, and then figuring out the logistics of recording and getting all the personnel on board, and then working with Will to mix it, and then Joe Lambert who mastered it, and then working with Broadway Records. That all ended up taking about 2 years. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Hey, Will.
Yo, what's up, Doug?
I have a question for you. So What was the approach mixing this album at that intersection of musical theater and disco and pop and everything that it became? What was that experience like for you?
So it was just hearing the songs and listening to the original, because when I came into this, I knew of Stephen Sondheim, but I had never done a deep dive. And through checking out, there was a special on HBO. There was a lot of interviews with him and a lot about his process and how much he valued working on the lyrics and melody as an arrangement as one thing. That inspired me to just be so excited about him and the project. And then listening back through all the original versions, and then listening to where the arrangements had gotten to, and saying, oh, we want it to feel like this specific flavor of disco. It was like, okay, cool. This is an amazing sonic challenge. And I kind of loved it and leaned into it, and just, yeah, but I didn't want it to sound like a Broadway cast record. I wanted it to sound, big and tough and dancey, whether it was coming out of your iPhone or hi-fi system. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, two-part question to wrap up this part of the interview. So what is the future for Losing My Mind, and should we expect any more remixed albums in the future?
Well, Josh and I have always talked about bringing this back to a live format again. And obviously that's tricky in this time, but it is still a goal eventually to get this thing back up on a stage with live singers, live band, and possibly expand it to include even more material. So that's the initial idea.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming today. Hope we see you again at the end of the interview for a few fun Sondheim questions. Thank you again. So we're going to move on to the performers next and ask them about their time with creating the album.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right. So if the performers want to put on their cameras.
Hey, everyone.
Everyone.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming today. You were all absolutely spectacular on the album, and we cannot wait to talk with you today. All right. So, first question, anyone can chime in. So, for you guys, the performers, was there any difficulty in learning these classic songs in such a different style?
I'll go. I would say that Scott and Joshua did such a wonderful job with the arrangements of these songs that I feel like it kind of lended it. So it just flowed. It felt like, I was like, oh, I'm having a little easier time learning like that. It was really nice. I was very pleasantly surprised, and I really enjoyed the learning of the songs, because it is such a classic style and such classic music flipped in such a unique and interesting way. So it was interesting for me as a performer. I was very engaged in the learning of the music.
I hadn't spent a ton of time with Sondheim in my musical theater training. It's not something that I spent a ton of time with. I kind of gravitated to the more modern, and then honestly the roles that I was told that I fit in, right? And so the interesting thing for me was getting these arrangements and being able to learn them and learning so many songs, because the background vocals are so heavy. Yeah. Learning all of the arrangements was actually really fun for me, because if there's anything that I did know, it's that everything is incredibly intentional. And Stephen Sondheim he's so good at text painting. Every little bit leads together. And so I think I had less of a concern about, messing it up, so to speak, because there was such a playful air added to everything. Everything was very fun. And there was such a pop element, it was supposed to be disco. And so there was a little bit of room to kind of be like, oh, what are you doing here vocally? Oh, I could do that little flip too. And we can play a little bit, as opposed to being like, do everything as it's intended, because in the actual shows, you almost don't want to disrespect the material.
I was gonna say, I found it fascinating, because to be honest, when I recorded I'm Blaine, I sing on the Unworthy of Your Love duet. And I was like emotionally and like in life busy when I don't know, we'll talk about in the next Zoom, but I was going through my own stuff. So I remember while working on the material, I remember when I first started singing, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe all the things I have to work on right now. This would be a Sondheim song. I'm never gonna accomplish this. And then I'm like, I love being reminded that his songs are bops. They have great melodies. Like, I think we always think of Sondheim as like this he is genius. It is deep, you know, he's as layered. He is as layered as Lin-Manuel is, but look the medium that Lin does it in. And it was just, it kind of brought it like, oh no, these are still bops. These are still, it all depends on the medium. So I remember being like, oh yeah, this is a melody. Like, this is an actual, like, you know, so that's what I loved about, you know, really getting to revisit.
I'm with Blaine. I'm Aneesa Folds, and I sing on No One Is Alone. And I was also emotionally and just busy. And I remember getting asked to do this, and Sondheim is scary because he writes and he's got words. It's words and patterns and pitter patterns and all this stuff all over the place, but they are bops. He was the first person to put rap and musical theater into the woods, and I will die on that grave. Greens, nothing but greens. It's the rap, and I can't wait to be the witch. But just like when I saw that I was going to be singing with Deonté and Charity, who I'm huge fans of both of them, and so I was sold already. But learning the music and the way that Joshua and Scott presented it, it was very chill. It was a welcome environment when I got to the studio, and we just got to play, and it was real chill.
I'm gonna have to piggyback on. Hi, I'm Deonté. I also sang on No One Is Alone and It's Hot Up Here in the City on Fire and It's Our Time. Just like everyone else, it was a super busy day. In fact, Juwan and I actually had to leave the studio early because we had to go. We got called into Aladdin and we had to go do the show. I remember at first being super nervous. I was like, I don't know, these notes are so specific. The words are so specific. And then we got in the studio and we just played and we had fun. And there was like no pressure. It was just a good time. And even when our time got cut short because of the show or whatever, it was still fun. It didn't, at no point was I like, oh, we can't do this. Like, it was just awesome. It was super fun.
Same.
Great, awesome. Okay, so you all have this really broad range of theater credits across the board. You know, how did singing on this album compare to all of the other scores that you'd been singing or were even singing at the same time, later that night, whatever? How did this specific experience in singing this score differ from everything else you'd done?
Hi, I'm Juwan. I sang It's Hot Up Here, Hot, and Our Time. And I found that this one for me personally was way more fun because of what everyone has kind of said already. The flexibility to play with the material and like low key, just because I'm really gay, like I always thought Sondheim was like anyway. So it was nice to be able to like put that like in a world outside of our head and have it like be acceptable to to kind of like live in the material that way. So it was a lot more fun than any like previous like cast albums I had recorded for me.
So I'm Brittnie. I sang all the background vocals with Vishal and Onye, and then why am I forgetting the name of my song? Why am I like nervous right now? The Whitney.
By the Sea.
Thank you. Listen.
Which you sang down on, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, Moments by the Sea. So speaking to kind of what my thought process was, so I studied musical theater, did a few tours, and they were all, you know, I really live in like, I love and like to be in like the ingenue space. And I've always kind of been thrown into like, you're the sassy Black friend. And so I never really got a chance to like really live in like, this is a moment to, you know, take other, unless it was like, you know, a chorus line where, you know, Morales got to do, you know, What I Did for Love was like, oh, this is like a moment that I really want to have. And, you know, we don't usually get that. So in my time in musical theater, it's been so different than right now. You know, I am a pop singer songwriter. So being able to play with that pop side of things and almost be able to take this thing and then take that freedom and turn it into something that feels unique to me and translate exactly what that character is saying without all of those borders was so nice. Approaching it from, you know, if I had written this song, what would I want it to sound and feel like, and how much freedom do I have to play? I'm notorious for being like that girl in the cast who like wants to play a little vocally. I'm always like pushing boundaries and being told like, pull back, girl, you can't do that. So being able to have that, like I even like after I got the score, I texted Joshua and I was like, so like, how much room do I have? And he was like, girl, you can be you. I was like, but so you mean that? I'm gonna hold you to that and make sure that you know I didn't break any rules. But it kind of fits in line with what I'm doing now, and I think it was really nice to be able to feel free to add, you know, the natural inclination to add pop stylings to this and not have to like worry too much about it. So I feel like it was very freeing.
I would piggyback off of that. I'm Charity, by the way. I sang on the opening. I sang on No One Is Alone, Losing My Mind, Mega Mix. I will piggyback on that and say it was so nice, you know, to get to sing sweetly. You know what I mean? And with my natural like bend, actually, when I sing is more of a softer, like pointed emotion, you know, driven kind of thing. And I'm always asked to sing this big, like, you know, kind of stuff. So I found it to be very, you know, very liberating and refreshing to have the opportunity to do it how I wanted to do it and to do it how I felt it, you know?
Absolutely.
I'll add to that and also say, and in an opposite way, I don't ornament a lot in my singing usually, naturally. Pretty by the book, like you give me a piece of music, I'm gonna sing what's on the paper until you force me to do something else. And it was kind of cool to actually be in a space where, you know, I was given the freedom to do that, but also to like add whatever little natural inclinations. And what I loved about being in the studio with Josh and Scott is that, you know, oftentimes, especially being a Black tenor, that people want you to scream and holler and riff all over the place. And it was nice to not have the pressure to do that. It was nice to get in the studio and somebody say, hey, do your own thing, make it your way. And when I do my own thing and it's calm and it's natural and it's not riffy and, you know, all these other things, they're like, awesome, great, thank you. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay. There's not this pressure to be something other than who you are. And I think that when I listen to the album from start to finish, you can kind of hear that. You hear the authenticity from start to finish. And I think that is because not only did they arrange it well, but they also trusted us to bring what we have to the table instead of forcing us to be something other than we are, you know?
Absolutely. And speaking, just piggybacking off of that idea of like really lending yourself to this, I'm curious about anyone who wants to answer this, what your experience was of taking on many different roles, even if it was just in one song. I mean, these musical theater canon roles, what was that experience like for anyone who wants to jump in?
I'll start. For me, I didn't actually approach it like they were roles. I approached them like it was a pop album, just because they made it very clear that that's what we were going for, a disco album. So I didn't even think about the characters, I just thought about the songs and, and communicating the actual whatever the song was. Like It's Hot Up Here had so many references, like you just have to like do your thing and keep it moving.
I agree. I didn't approach it as a role either. And I think that the outcome was that it's just a completely different thing where if you're a musical theater person and you're listening to this from that perspective and you know Sondheim, but if you're not, and I listened to my parents and they were like, oh, okay. And it was interesting because as I said, I'm a fan of Charity. Hi. And I hadn't sung with her before. And,
hey, boo.
Hi. And I hadn't sung with Deonté before, but I'm also a fan of him and knowing him slightly, but we'll work on that. We weren't in the room together. And the way that everything was constructed was just, listening and trusting. And then when it came together at the end, just the blend and how beautiful it sounded was so satisfying. And because I personally, and I didn't approach it from a role standpoint, it just turned into a completely different thing, especially with 3 Black voices and a disco feel. I don't know, it just sounds like something different, especially with the lyrics, like no one is alone, and like 3 Black people singing sweetly to you. You're not alone.
Yeah, I was just, really, like, really seriously, I'm so appreciative that we did. Honestly, if like Josh would be like, oh yeah, we're doing the album, it's disco, but we really want you to, I probably like, not for me then, not for me. For me, if you're going to especially recreate something, please recreate it. I'm not trying to do what I did yesterday, and this is my life. So I really have no interest in, and if I would have, first of all, I don't know Anyone Can Whistle, and I don't know what's the other song, the other show that was in mine, Josh?
Assassins.
Assassins, yeah, definitely don't know Assassins. I mean, I know Assassins, but I definitely don't. So I'm not about to Wikipedia the plot right before we get into studio. No one's doing that. But that would have even hindered. It's like, but that's not, you can't bring a 2-hour fake show into it. That's not where we are. You're your voice on the track. So I wanted to say again, I appreciate that. And I appreciate that they did this with such an important person like Sondheim. There is talk about bringing things up to where we are now. There's this unnecessary tight grip on nostalgia. And I think that is something we're looking at now, nostalgia being a very kind word to put a lot of topics we're looking at this in. But there's this, and it's a discussion about revivals. We're getting to this, like, why? If you're trying to put it in a new lens, please let that lens be. Let it be. Let us. So I'm really grateful that some people may be like, oh, not for me, I can't do it. And then most people like me are like, if I don't put this album on while I'm at the gym, what am I doing? Does it not get anyone through? It gets me through.
All right, oh, sorry.
No. Oh, please. No, I definitely was like,
I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, especially since Moments by the Sea is one of my favorite songs of the album, and you took on both the iconic roles of the Baker's Wife and Mrs. Lovett.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. That's so kind. It was an interesting thing because going into it, I almost tried to ignore the role. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but I think I tried to kind of separate myself from what the intention of, separate from context and let instrumentation and mood guide the movement and guide my intentions. Because because it's a pop album, it's what are each of the songs. And I think it's so nice to be able to, again, I know I keep coming back to this idea of freedom, but I feel like it was such a freeing thing to kind of step back and be like, this is what this song is. This is what this song should feel like. This is what this song should make you feel. And so I feel like there was like, it comes back to the arrangements, honestly, being able to really hear the fullness of what was going on in the orchestra and let that move everything and kind of just ride that wave and let it kind of bring out things that maybe you wouldn't feel if you were in the role on stage, or wouldn't necessarily allow yourself to feel if you were in the role on stage. So I think that for me, I was most excited to step into interpretation and allow, to detach from some of that like nostalgia and let go of that grip of what you expect it to be, because that's what this is supposed to be. It's like, you didn't see this coming, but we're about to rock. You know what I mean? So it was really nice to have that and to not be like, oh, here I have to, here I have to be this and here I have to be this. And like, there has to be a change. It's like, who would have thought that those songs had the capacity to flow together in that way and be able to be a fully cohesive and like really light and airy and fun experience. So yeah, I think it was nice to let everything else but the roles guide the intention and kind of let it come out naturally.
And I can say for a fact that you guys certainly did rock on the album. Thank you so much for coming to this interview. If you guys would like to stick around at the end, after we talk to Robbie, we're going to be talking about our favorite Sondheim shows and our favorite songs in the album. But for now, if you guys want to turn off your cameras, thank you so much for speaking with me and Doug today.
Thank you all.
Hi, Robbie.
Hi there.
Thank you so much for coming today.
What else am I doing, honestly?
So our first question is, so what is your role at Broadway Records? Just for
I am beloved cabaret icon Robbie Rozelle. I'm the A&R director of Broadway Records, and I designed this album.
So our first question is, what was so different from producing and designing this album from ones you might have worked on in the past?
So I didn't produce this album. That was Josh and Scott, and they brought it to me. And the minute that I got an email that said Sondheim Disco ? With like a shrug emoji, I was like, yeah, that sounds insane, and I want in. So I met Josh at Citizen M, the rooftop bar there, and over some Negronis, we talked about what the album was and what they wanted to do with it. He sent me some tracks from it, and I said, yeah, we're done. Yes, we're releasing this because it's so stupid and so wonderful and so gay. Yes. Yeah, right? So that's why it happened with us, because I said, yeah, we need to put that out. And then we sent it to Steve, who called it thrilling, and we were off to the races.
So then moving forward from there, getting the album to like its wide release and where it is now, how's that process different? How is it different from your other albums?
So normally, like a solo album would go out, and if it's like a very big, or like an Alphaba or something like that, like it gets some attention. But this came out at the weirdest moment, because quarantine was just the lockdown was just starting, and suddenly we had everybody's attention because everybody was stuck at home and had nothing to do. And I'm trying to think of who it was who did. I think it was Vulture. Vulture did like a first listen of the Megamix, and it just took off like through social media like crazy, because again, it's so damn good and like such an earworm, and just the audacity to put Sondheim and Disco Fever Dream in the same sentence was stupid and ludicrous. And so everybody was like, let me click on this, let me hear what this thing is going to be, usually with like a raised eyebrow. And then they fell in love with it just the same way I did. And so spreading the word about this album was a piece of cake. It also helps that all the talent on the album is so effing good. They're just such great singers, like all the way down the line. And I'm a fan of so many of them. So it was just like, yeah. And they love the album too. So it was a really easy album to get behind. And again, it just happened to come out and be the only thing that happened around Steve's birthday until that YouTube concert happened. It was the only thing like celebrating him for his 90th. And it's just because we all were stuck at home because of the virus. So
did you find that the concert might have also brought more attention to the album at the time?
I don't think we ever thought about that at all, because like the concert was here's every star who's ever appeared in something by Stephen Sondheim, go with God. And it was 9 years long. And it started late, but it was its own thing. So I don't think, plus the album was already out by then. So it just was like this sort of magical happenstance that it came when it did. Like we were always going to release it for Steve's birthday, but then it just became the only thing. And that was like something really cool and special. And you know that I would love to find pictures of him at like 54 dancing with Liza. You know they exist.
For sure. And
Right?
our final question for you, Robbie, is commercially, what hoops did you have to kind of jump through to get this album on its feet with such canon?
So every kind of solo album, which this would sort of fall under, even though there's so many talented singers on it, but it's like a solo album. And so there's really only like a statutory mechanical royalty that gets paid per song. Now, there's over 40 songs that are like woven through the record because Josh and Scott really hate me a lot. So there's like a lot of things you sort of have to apply for. And we started to have to do like counts by second to see if they would even, you could even need a royalty for them. In the chat, Scott just said, sorry, not sorry. So I just want to acknowledge that. But there weren't so many hoops, and they had already reached out to Steve to say, Josh said 2 seconds of Ladies Who Lunch. Like, that's insane. Nobody even knows that's there. But until now, that's a custom Broadway exclusive. And they all have such crazy like titles, like It's Hot Up Here in the City on Fire, which is such a killer track. So we had to sort of parse like what is royalty, what's not, and then just put it out. But because they had gotten Stephen's blessing for the record, it wasn't as hard as it could have been.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to speak with us, Robbie. Cannot wait to see what Broadway Records puts out next.
Me neither.
If you would like to keep on your camera, and if everyone else would like to turn on the cameras, we just have a few fun questions to wrap up the interview.
Hey, y'all.
Hi, everyone, again. All right, so you can chime in on this if you would like to, but what is all of yours favorite songs from the album?
I love Miller's Son.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Me too.
I'm not even gonna lie.
Me too.
I'm upset.
Me
I'm
too.
not voting for myself, but I love Miller's Son. It's unreal. Yeah. If you can take Miller's Son and take Miller's Son into a, come on.
Yeah.
When those strings kick, and then when she jumps
It's
at
so
the end in the belt, I'm like, okay.
I love it enough. I was gonna email Josh and Scott and be like, so I didn't get an option on this?
Get the sheet music and put out your own video.
Okay. You're gonna get a cover. A cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one right there.
I love No One Is Alone. And I loved the process of writing those 3-part harmonies and then hearing the interpretation that our 3 singers brought to it. And I just want to say that listening to all of our singers talk about their experience recording this album, I haven't had a chance to have any of these conversations with anyone, and I'm so moved that you all had such a positive experience on this, and we literally couldn't have done it without you. We're so thankful for the work you put in. And I also just want to put it out into the world that this was a very, very fast recording process with 0 rehearsal time, and everyone did an incredible job. So I put this in the chat earlier when we were all talking, but like, had we had more time and time together, we could have done even more than what we did. So I'm just thrilled with how this all came together, and I love you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you.
Love you. Thank you.
Moving on to Sondheim canon, what is your favorite Sondheim show?
Mine.
No, go ahead.
For music would be Sunday, in the Park with George.
I
and
agree.
Probably Into the Woods for music too. Story-wise, Merrily We Roll Along is pretty genius, and yeah.
I'm a little twisted, so I love Sweeney Todd and Assassins.
Oh, I want to see your Mrs. Lovett.
Yes.
I want to see your Mrs. Lovett.
Yes.
I would have to, for me, it's Company.
I guess Into the Woods. I don't like this question, but yeah, I guess. And really, because I did it, so I'm just that's really the basic reason. Yeah.
I would have to say Company is definitely my favorite, followed by Sunday. I think Sunday is it's like such a hard tie. I don't know that I could ever say any show is like my absolute favorite, but it's just like my heart, I'm a puddle every time.
When the whole ensemble is singing, it's like,
it's like,
it's insane. I have chills right now.
My body.
When they all bow to him at the end, they all bow to the painter.
Yep.
Come on. They're all bowing to Steve.
It's too long, but oh no, Into the Woods is long too. Shows are too long, but genius.
I really like Passion. The music in Passion is so good. I just walk around singing it like such a nerd, and I feel like nobody knows that. Everyone knows the show. Like, it's not like one of his like big shows, I guess, but it's so good. Oh, that's all.
I've watched Passion 3 times in quarantine. But I would have to say, thematically, Sunday, score is probably Merrily, and then overall show is like Sweeney.
Joshua, I'm going to double you. Exactly. When I saw the Kennedy Center, like the 6 at Kennedy Center, and I walked in going, Sunday's my favorite show. And then I fell in love with Merrily. And the Sweeney Todd is also like perfect. They're all perfect. Why are you asking this question?
I would be lying if I said prior to quarantine I didn't think about flying out to London just to see the Sunday in West End.
Yeah.
Love the Sunday representation here.
It's weird that none of you said the Frogs.
The Frogs is great, as is Bounce/Roadshow.
/Wise Guys.
Is that the If You Can Find Me, I'm Here?
No, that's
that
Evening
song
Primrose.
Evening Primrose.
Oh.
Also a great
The
song.
Frogs doesn't have hits.
What about Saturday Night?
What about Braka-kak?
Great song. Great. It's a ringtone.
Beautiful gown.
I am loving all of these answers, but we have one more question before we wrap up the interview. This might just apply to performers, but I think anyone should chime in. If you could play any Sondheim role, which would it be?
Dot.
The Witch.
Get out of my head.
Battle right now. Battle right now.
The Witch. The Witch, the Witch,
Yep.
the Witch.
Mrs. Lovett.
That too.
I would give it to you.
Or Sweeney, female Sweeney.
George.
Ooh, a female Sweeney. I
Yeah.
might have to jump on that train as well.
Like, don't you always want to see like Cynthia Erivo as Sweeney and Jinx Monsoon as Mrs. Lovett? That's all I want.
Oh, yes.
I don't know. I'm gonna go with, okay, walk with me here. I'm gonna go with, everything's tied to, she needs therapy. Everything's tied to what I did and didn't do. So I did a production of Sweeney Todd. That was my first production of his in high school as a summer camp. And I wanted to be Antony because I wanted to be Antony. I wanted to sing those dulcet, I wanted to give him a little smooth moment, you know? But because of the camp size, they needed someone to play the Beatle because they need someone to sing, you know, he sings really like high. It's like really weird. So I was like, the Beatle? Y'all done tried, nailed the Beatle, but I still want to do Antony. So that's what we're doing.
There it is.
I feel like there's going to be in a really
The girl who sings Greenfinch and Linnet Bird.
Yeah.
That's Sondheim, right?
That's me and you. See?
Joanna.
That's me and you.
I'll be that girl.
You're my Joanna. You're my Joanna.
Like,
Perfect.
this is a Zoom Sweeney Todd right here. It's cast.
I am excited for the Zoom Sunday in the Park with George and Sweeney Todd revivals that are going to be coming out of this interview today. I think that just about wraps up everything. Thank you guys so much for coming today and for creating such a wonderful album. A round of applause to everyone digitally. If you would like to keep in touch with Custom Broadway, we are on Twitter and Instagram at Custom Bway. And once again, thank you guys, and I hope that you continue to have a wonderful summer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Miss you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.